As a machinist, you don't want to be milling into your expensive fixturing or accidentally rub your tool holder surfaces up against your work holding. So by spending a little time up front building your work holding products into the ESPRIT simulation, you will have a ton more confidence in your program sent to the floor. So let's build this single jaw chick vise. So this is the CAD model for one of the chick vises that you can download directly from their website. This particular model, if you wanted to follow along, is their OneLOK vise. It's the 1540 series, and there's two of them. There's a CM and an MCM. So this one is the MCM model. So I'm not really sure what the difference is between the two, but when we look at the model, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that the model is oriented and positioned correctly in space. So when we look at it, the movable, or the jaw axis, the vise axis, whatever you want to call that, is along Y. And I think that that's what we want, because typically I think most people that I see, they would initially mount their vise in this way, in this orientation, with the x-axis. Let's say you're standing in front of a Haas machine. Your vise is going to go in and out of the machine, this axis. So I think that that's fine. If we look at the orientation, it is normal to Z, which is correct, but the location of that needs to be adjusted. So on these particular products, I'll highlight this face here. What we're going to do is we're going to set the 0 point at one of these location, ground, location. So if you have a chick foundation that has the press fit bushings, for location finding and repeatability, we're just basically going to come here and say move origin point to this location. So under the Home tab, we're going to come to Move Origin, and we just want to make sure that you can see that there's definitely different little circles that I can highlight and pick. I want to make sure that I'm on this one. This one is highlighting in green that outside face. I don't want to pick one of these inner bores or inner circular faces. I just want to pick this one on the outside, because that is the face that is going to sit flush. Let me go to a clear view here. These are the faces that are going to sit flush on the top of the table, or the chick foundation that you can interface this product with. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now, if you don't have a foundation, you don't plan to use a foundation, you got some custom thing, you can use a different location. You could set this to whatever you want. So basically, when we load this fixture into the ESPRIT simulation, this is going to be the reference location point that ESPRIT is going to use. So if you loaded it right on your machine table without the foundation, what would happen is this point would be at basically the center of the machine table itself. So, okay, so the orientation, the location, the rotation along Y here looks good. So we're going to go ahead and start setting some of our 0 positions. So when you're making a vise like this, when you make it in the ESPRIT interface, there's another product called Machine Tool Builder that gives you more flexibility. But inside the ESPRIT interface for basic fixturing like this with a single jaw, you really want to start with the jaw in the open position, because when you save everything out, ESPRIT thinks everything is in the open position, and it's going to move to close it. So we want this in the open, or the maximum position. On this product, it's like 128 millimeters. You can see these serrations where the OneLOK lever is located. And to me, I mean, this looks like it's at the maximum open position, so I'm going to assume that's what it is. So we're going to go ahead and leave everything alone. If you wanted to kind of give yourself a little bit of leeway, what we can do is, let's see here. So this is a separate solid. This here is a separate solid. Let me put this on a separate layer here. We're going to call this movable. And I'm going to come over here to the properties, come to general, and here's where you can change your layer. I'm going to say from default, let's put that on movable. And if I turn this layer off temporarily, I can see that's basically everything that would go along for the ride. So if you want to move these two solids just a little bit more, just so you know in the simulation, if you've got a big part in there, you're doing something, you know, because it's simulation. As long as this is able to clamp, you can go ahead here and say copy, and then you can do a translate command, and you can say move, and we're going along the y-axis here, so we want to go in a positive direction. So I'm just going to say, hey, let me give myself an extra quarter or a half an inch or something. So I'm just going to say 0.5. And do you need to do this? No, it's not that big of a deal. But we can see here now that we are beyond the serration. So it's just a little bit of a fudge factor for myself. You don't need to do this. So we've moved this to a different layer. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take each of these, basically these soft jaws, and I'm going to put them on their own layer. So I'm going to come here to the layers and create another layer, and I'll call this soft jaws, and we'll put them on that layer temporarily as well. So what I'm going to do is turn those off, and I'm going to come back here and activate the default layer. So now I have basically like the fixturing cavity or zone of this vise without the jaws in there, because I might want to define different jaws for different applications. Maybe I have a round part or something with a different shape on it, and I might want to create that depending on how accurate I want my simulation to be. So looking at this, we want to define our jaw axis. So this stuff here is going to move. It's going to slide up and down the y-axis, and we need to have a reference position for that. So what I'm going to do here is, I think I'm just going to come to this bottom position, and okay, so in ESPRIT, the default movable axis is always going to be along X. So we see here that our UVW is right now moving it along Y. So anything that is going to be on the jaw axis, I want to make sure that it's moving along X. So we don't need to position our entire vise. We just need to position the jaw axis that we're defining. So what we're going to do here is around the Z axis, we're going to rotate our UVW by 90 degrees. So here we're going to come and say rotate UVW, okay? And down here at the bottom left, it says what's the rotation about U, and then V, and then, you know, W. So we're going to put in 0, enter, 0, enter, and then positive 90. And that's going to get our U axis to move, our U axis orientation, so that the jaw will move along U. And now I want to position that. So I'm going to position it where my, where my jaw axis is going to be. So I'm going to come here and just say, let's translate. So activate translate, then click on the icon, and we're going to translate our UVW, and you'll see that there's a center point on this bottom edge of the solid, and if I click there, it's going to relocate my UVW at this position. And here I'm going to come and say, let's make a jaw adapter _1. There's only one movable jaw. I don't need to worry about naming this or anything. So we're just going to go ahead and create that. So we have that now. Now what I want to do is put a location reference on this side. So I'm going to basically create a location where I can now mount a fixed jaw. So we can have a different jaw. And to explain this, on this movable, all of this with the jaw is going to be a single element. And this will make a little bit more sense later. But we're going to make one element that's going to include this whole moving assembly, which is going to be whatever soft jaw that I have here, or serrated or stepped or whatever jaw, with this lever component here. That's all going to be one. And then this body is going to be another one. And then this jaw here is going to be a third component. And they're all going to be assembled inside of the simulation. So I need to make a location here for this jaw. And what I can do is I could leave this orientation alone the way that it is. I'll just come over here to translate and pick right here. And now I have this location for what we'll call a fixture adapter. So we had a jaw adapter for the moving portion, but this one is going to be a fixed jaw, and it's going to be a fixture adapter FA_1. Okay? So we have these two components located, or these two locations located and defined. And now what we want to do is basically, maybe what we'll do here, actually, let's show you this. Let's rename this. Let's right click here and rename this plane. And at the end of this name, FA_1, we'll do an underscore fixed jaw. So now I see what it looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one. And we're just going to call this FA_2. So let's say we're loading another fixture into this fixture. So I have that here that I can locate that to. And if you're wondering, oh, why did you just put it right there? Well, because you can move that fixture around afterward. So you don't need to worry about where it's necessarily located. So now what I want to do is create a place where my workpiece would appear on the screen when I want to mount it into the machine. So what I'm going to do here is just come here to work plane from geometry. So you have this little arrow at the bottom. Pick your work plane from geometry, activate the icon, and we're going to pick maybe, we'll go from the base here, and we'll just shift this. So we'll come up and say translate this. I'm going to move this up 0, 0, and then let's say like 4 inches. So it's up here above the fixture. And then I'm going to come here and add a WA_1. WA means workpiece adapter _1. So we have a workpiece adapter. So now what I want to do is save out my base unit. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to turn off the movable jaw. So I'm just looking at my base unit here, and then I'm going to click and drag like this to grab this whole unit, this base unit here. And the nice thing about the Chick website and their engineers, they put all this coloring already in there, so we don't have to do any of that. So if you've been watching any of the other tutorial videos, it's really nice that those guys made their product look just like it would in real life. So we don't need to do anything there. I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to come to File, and I'm going to come to Save As, and then here we're going to come and say let's save this as a fixture file, GDML, and then come to whatever. I have a fixtures Chick folder, and then OneLOK Vice, and here I'm just going to leave it the name that the CAD model came in. I'm going to say save. And another thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to just say File, save as, and I'm going to save this as an ESPRIT file as well. And the reason I'm doing that is I might mess up or I might want to change something. So instead of doing all these steps again, I'm just going to save that ESPRIT file. Because once you save the GDML, if you don't save the ESPRIT, you don't have, you'll have to start from scratch. So now I've saved this, so I don't need to worry about too much right now. I've captured all of the work that I've done. I'm going to basically grab all this and hit the delete key, okay? And now I'm going to come back here and turn these on. Now I'm going to concern myself with the movable jaw assembly first. So we've done our first component, which is the base unit. Now we're going to do the movable jaw components next. So this one I don't need. I'm just going to click on it, delete it. Remember, we saved the file, so I don't need to worry about that. I'll just reload the file and then keep that one and delete these on the next one. So now what I want to do is come back to the jaw adapter. I'll double click on that in the list and it shows me where this is. So I have this assembly here, and what I want to do is highlight it all, right click, come to copy, and say align plane, move, and we're just going to align it to XYZ. And when I do that, it snaps it into the position where the 0 point is at the jaw axis. So now here I can basically delete all these. I'm just going to delete this, delete this, delete this, delete that. I don't need any of those anymore. So basically I'm back to my standard work planes. I've got my movable jaw, and we can save this out. So let's say I'm going to eventually in the future, I'm going to make some different soft jaws. I'm going to save this as my base jaw file. So I'm going to come here and say File, Save As, and this is going to be an ESPRIT file. And I'm just going to come here toward the end of the name and underscore movable jaw. So whenever I want to make a movable jaw or a different movable jaw for this base unit, this MCM, this 1540 MCM Chick Vise, I could just open this file and here I am, here I go, and now I can do something. So let's do something really quick while we're here. You could do whatever you want. I'm going to do this kind of quick. So if you want to follow along, you could pause or whatever and catch up. I'm just going to say, hey, let's offset this by 0.75, and then I'm going to offset my center axis by, it doesn't really matter as long as it's big enough to encompass the entire jaw. I'm going to come to keep. I'm going to keep these pieces of geometry, and then what I'm going to do is shift and grab and translate this guy up, and we'll say, we'll move this up 1.5. I think the jaw itself is like 1.9, inches or something. So this gives me, about almost a 1/2 inch of height, and then the width of the jaw, I don't remember what the width of the jaw is offhand. Anyway, whatever this, I'm going to basically cut extrude this away. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at this jaw. This is jaw or solid number 2, okay, comma 2. That's this jaw. That's the one that I want to manipulate. So I'm going to come to modeling. I'm going to highlight my rectangle that I made, and I'm going to say extrude, okay? And I'm going to come here and activate body number 2, and I'm going to say let's cut that, and say okay. So basically I have a soft jaw that I've put a step in it. So now I can set the bottom of my workpiece to this face, and the jaw will automatically, be closed to this face. So now what I want to do is just make sure nothing is highlighted. So I'm grabbing everything and come to File, Save As, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to save a jaw file. This is a jaw file. Okay, so this is going to be the movable jaw, and I'm going to come over here and say underscore 1.5 by 0.75, okay, and say okay. So we've saved that, and we've saved our original soft jaw file. So now I'm done with this one. And now what I want to do is come back and say, let's come to open my base file that I saved out earlier, which has all of the components in it. So we're going to reload this file, and now what I want to do is basically I'm going to basically highlight this one. I guess the easiest way is to highlight the one that I want, hit Control W. That's a quick little hotkey there to swap the group. So if you want to just basically keep one thing and you got 100 things on the screen, just pick that one item or 3 items or whatever, hit Control W, and then right click or hit the delete key or whatever, and you're done. So here we have a fixed jaw work plane. So again, what are we going to do? We're going to highlight this. We're going to right click, copy. We're going to go to Align Plane, Move, select Axis XYZ, say boom, done. Now on these, I don't need them anymore. These are gone. So we delete those. And now I'm going to what? I am going to, yes, I'm going to save out my fixed jaw. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and here at the end of the file, I'm going to do underscore fixed jaw. So now I have my, my base file for any fixed jaw file that I want to create. So now I'm just going to kind of duplicate what I did there. And again, you want to follow along or do your own thing, whatever. I'm going to come over here to 0.75, doing the same thing, offset a couple of lines, fairly large, offset this one, come over to keep. We're going to grab these 4 elements, keep that, Shift, Control C, translate. We're going to move that up 1.5. And then we only have one solid. I already know which one it's going to be. I come to Modeling, Extrude. We're going to come over here to select that one. It's already set to cut. And boom, we're done. I'm going to click away so nothing is highlighted. And I'm going to say File, Save As. This one, we're not doing a jaw, we're doing a fixture file. A fixture file, okay? So here I'm going to put that same underscore 1.5 by 0.75. Say OK. And now we can see how this is going to look into the machine. So we'll come here to the machine setup, and I'm going to come to Haas. So we'll load a Haas machine. And earlier, I created a foundation. So what I'm going to do first is create that foundation. So when you have your machine loaded, you're going to come here to Fixture, and I'm going to come to Chick, Foundation. And I had to build this from their DXF print or their PDF print. So I just whipped this together really quick. And I'm going to say OK. And then on here, we're going to mount a fixture. So here I'm going to go to my OneLOK vise. The one that we just made was the MCM. So we're going to load this one. And you'll see that on the fixture, it comes over here to the left. So on my fixture, I created 3 FA locations. So on these Chick foundations, they have a numeric or alphanumeric system where you have like these rows that are A, B, C, D, and then each of these basically columns along Y of location pins or points, you have a numbering system. So it starts with this column first is 1, and as you move across, like this middle one is 13. So if I just pick, I did 4, so you can see, let me turn off or I'll go to kind of a clear view here. You can see that on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, where the O on the OneLOK is, you can see that I snapped that point in the very beginning where that location pin would be. It snaps right to, and we're set to C4. So A is this first row closest to the operator, second row, third row for C, A, B, C, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, it's right there. So if I come here to C13, it puts that at basically, you know, that middle. And if I wanted to move this around, you know, each of these holes is 50 millimeters apart. So if I want to move it to the left, you know, I could put in minus 50 divided by 25.4 because I'm in an inch file. Sorry, I got to put in an equal here. So when you put in an equal, it will shift that over and do the math for you of 1.96. So anyway, we've got that in there. I'm going to say OK. And now let's go ahead and load a fixture. We're going to load a fixture, and we're going to bring in our fixed jaw. And this is our fixed jaw. I'm going to open that guy up, and you see that he comes in on the, now these are on the same location, but it's on the fixed jaw location, and there it is, boom, looking good. I'm going to say OK. And now what I want to do, there's no jaw icon here. Why is that? It's because I'm still highlighted on my fixed jaw. I want to go back to the base unit. And now you see we have an active jaw icon. We're going to pick this icon here. And now I'm going to pick my movable jaw. So we want to make sure that we pick the MCM movable jaw. Okay? And now you see that this is my jaw assembly. I'm going to bring that in, and there it is. So when we see this opened and closed, you know, if we had a workpiece in there, it would stop. But basically, we are ready to set up some awesome looking, very accurate ESPRIT simulations to make sure our program checking, collision checking, everything is there so that when this NC code is sent to the shop floor, we're very confident in our program, especially if you've watched some of the other, you know, milling holder tutorials and stuff like that. I mean, you're going to have some really nice accurate simulation. So upstream of the machine, everything can be as accurate as possible. There's no surprises, and you're not editing code at the machine. All right, good luck, guys, and we'll have some more stuff for you soon.